Welcome everyone to the Mashpee Men's Club today. We have an exciting day ahead of us. This is voting day, so I hope everybody has gotten out there and has voted. We begin each meeting with a salute to the flag. Please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know that we have at least one new member with us today. John, would you like to stand and just
Say hi.
introduce yourself for just a minute? Let us know your background.
Hi, my name is John Racicott. For 43 years, I was an insurance defense lawyer. Your dog bites somebody, you get sued, I defend you, that kind of stuff. I'm retired as a lawyer now, and I chose to not pay dues so that I could avoid continuing practicing law. 43 years was enough, so I can't give you any opinions or anything of that sort. I'm married, I have 3 children, 10 grandchildren, and I'm going to miss the next meeting because I'm going out to Barcelona for 2 weeks to visit my daughter and my granddaughter, and then she's taking her family and me to Morocco. And I'm going to be on a camel. I am not looking forward to the camel. My 8-year-old granddaughter, I couldn't say no. So that's my story. Sticking to it.
Wonderful. Let us know how the camel story
I just hope
turns
it
out.
doesn't
Yeah.
step on one of those unexploded things that are all over the desert out there.
Oh, yeah. Be careful. Make sure you get a smart camel.
Take pictures, you'll be a speaker.
Here we go. Here we go. Do we have any other visitors here in the room today? No? Okay. All right. So Burke has filled me in on the committee positions that we have coming up. And of course, we need one for the Boys and Girls Club fundraiser. That's really an important one, so we need help on that. That's going to be knocking on the door here pretty soon. Jim and his associate have actually volunteered to be on the audit committee, so thank you for that. That's taken care of. The charitable contributions committee, we don't need until a little bit later on, but if you'd like to volunteer for that, that would be terrific. But what we have knocking on our door right now is 2 people for the nominations committee, because they need to get going actually next month, because in April they need to put their ideas together. In May, we need to vote on a draft, and in June we need to finalize it because the offices actually take effect on July 1st. So that's coming right up. So we need to have somebody thinking about joining that committee in the very near future. So please let Burke or I know if you're interested in that. So now we move on to the treasurer's report, and Jim is going to honor us with his very first treasurer's report today.
It's not a big one. We had $8 of income last month, and that leaves us with a balance of $1104.39 in our in assets. That's it.
Good job.
Okay, great, thank you, Jim. Can I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Secretary's
Okay.
report.
Secretary's report is with Burke, and he is also in charge of speakers, so he's going to do back-to-back reports today.
Okay, first thing, let's consider the minutes of the February meeting, February 6th. They were circulated with the newsletter. We have a motion to approve the minutes as circulated.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. The next thing is, some of you have volunteered to participate in a program with the high school where the students would interview you about about your career, and because the particular one assigned to you will have some interest in what you have done, and it'll give them some practice on interviewing as well. We're still working with the teacher who is Christina Fraser at the high school, who is organizing the students. The interviews will be televised, be recorded by Mashpee TV and used in the classroom for teaching purposes. At any rate, I'll be in touch with the 7, I think now, who have signed up to participate in that program to flesh out what they did a little more, and then deal with Christina Fraser. But that is being mobilized and will get started as soon as high school's ready. That's it for the secretary. For speakers, our speaker next meeting, April 2, will be Rodney Collins, the town manager. And obviously, he's got a lot on his slate with the town meeting coming up in May, so we may expect to hear about that. And Wayne Taylor will be here with him, his administrative assistant. So that looks pretty good. May and June, I've talked with Russ Maloney, who's going to talk to you about trips. I'm trying to, the Museum of Natural History was number 2 on the list of favorite possibilities for a trip. I've been in touch with the office of the executive director at the museum. He's supposed to get back to me, and we can work out whether he will come and speak in either May or June. And then we would have a trip to the museum later that month. The other month will be taken up with working out something with the Wampanoags based on stuff that Harold Cloran has sent to me. I've been in touch with that office, and we'll see if they can pick the alternate month, and then perhaps a trip to that government center will be in order. So that's what's going on in trips.
Okay, great, thank you, Burke. Okay, Russ is going to tell us what's going on with trips and with your survey that you sent out.
Okay, we received back 15 responses from our 50-some-odd members relevant to what they, I would send out a list, which you all saw on your email. And I got back 15 responses, I said. The top one was the Wampanoag Travel Council. We had 11 responses that wanted to go there. Of course, we've been working on that for, 2 years now? Don't know if it's going to happen, but we're still trying. Museum of Natural History, well, Burke just covered that. That'll be later. We'll try to work that in with the speaker. Marine Biology Laboratory was the third with 7 responders. I think I'd like to set that up, excuse me, for either next month or May. So I have a call into them, waiting for a response back. The cruise on Liberté was number 4. It came in with 6 responses, and my mind just went blank. Who's gonna?
Oh, that was Dean.
Dean Turner, my God. What happened to you old? Dean Turner's gonna lead that, so I have to talk with him and see exactly when he wants to do that. It'll probably be later in the summer. Mass Maritime Academy was with 5 responses, but we went there last year, and the reason we wanted to go back this year was to see the new ship that they have. Well, I talked to them, and the new ship won't be in until July. Then they have to service it, get it all ready for the cruise going out in the fall. So nobody's going to be visiting the ship this year. So we're going to put that off until next year, and that we'll be able to get on the ship too. It's a hospital ship. They have elevators, so we won't be walking up and down ladders and stairs, so to speak. So far, it doesn't sound good, does it? The next in line was 5 responses, was the Mashpee Archives and the Mount Wampanoag Museum on Route 130. I've tried 2 different numbers for the Wampanoag Museum, and one was disconnected, the other one doesn't answer. And so I'm gonna go over to the tribal council and see if I can find out who and when. The archives, they're only open 1 day a week, I guess, for the public. And I'm trying to arrange that. I left a message, still waiting to get back to me. People don't respond. That's the problem. But at any rate,
Time to wrap things up.
we've got the trips that we secured the most interest was the Wampanoag Museum, Museum of Natural History, Marine Biological Laboratory, Cruise of the Liberté, Mashpee Archives, and the Mashpee Museum. And also the next was number 5, the 5 respondents, was the Mashpee High School. We didn't go last year.
That's under, we're looking into that.
Pardon?
I've been in touch, it's hard to get in touch with somebody, then they were on vacation for a week, but I've got my agent in the counseling department over there, gonna stir it up.
Your agent is working on it.
We are looking into that.
Okay. So right now, the first event we have now this month is at Wimpy's. It's going to be March 14th at noon. It would have been a Tuesday, but this is a Thursday because they're not open Monday and Tuesday. So if you're interested in going, please put your name in, put your $10 on the clipboard. We're
And
gonna
check
make-
off that you put in the $10,
And
it's check.
mark paid
Yep.
that you put in your $10. If we come up $10 short, somebody's going to have to say, oh, I forgot. So the March 14th, Thursday at noon at Wimpy's. Yes. Yes, Frank?
You're forgetting one important place,
What's that?
Mashpee Technical School. I don't know if you're aware, but we never talk about our technical school.
You mean the high-
All the students from Mashpee go.
You mean the high,
This is down in Howard. Brand new school, it's only about a year old, beautiful big cafeteria, and they have all the trades down there. My grandson had graduated from there. And he also graduated from, he went on to the Maritime Academy. He did that in 3.5 years and got a top job. He has 3 offers and he has a big job today. But it all started at the technical school that we have. All the Mashpee students, they don't go to Bond, and I don't think people are aware that we have a technical school. And it's down, maybe it's out of our range, but it's a great school. That's one where we should go, and I don't know if we have made it, if we had made some attempts maybe 5 years ago.
we went last year, didn't we?
Okay.
My teacher just
No, we
said,
didn't go
Yeah,
last,
yeah.
I think it was on the list, wasn't it on the list?
We went to Upper Cape Tech last year.
That's what he's talking
"Now,
about.
this-
Yeah,
No,
we
no,
were
he's talking
gonna,
about Howard.
we were gonna go to the new technical school when the new building was built and the pandemic killed us. We didn't have any trips. We've gotta go down there, and they now have an elevator, so, and if everybody can go, that, whatever, and it should be on the list, and I agree.
Okay, I'll put it on the list.
Well, I thought we had it on the list,
I
didn't
didn't
we,
see it.
Russ?
I mean, I'm running out of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
your turn.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that point, because we have discussed it.
Oh, you're only running out of time in this meeting, that's.
Yeah, I'm gonna, can I just say a raise of hands, anybody who wants to go to the Harwich Technical School?
Yes,
Okay, I'll put it on the list. The other thing is, our next trip next month for lunch is at the Silver Lounge in North Falmouth. And that's gonna be on April 19th, and that's a Tuesday. Right now, a suggestion was made to contact the Space Command over in Sandwich. I've tried and tried and tried, and I can't get through to them. I tried email, they don't answer it, they don't even allow it to go through. I tried phone, I left a message, and that's, so far, we're working on trips, we're working on lunches, but give us some time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Russ. Okay. So Brad Sweet has been doing a terrific job of getting notices, not ads, getting notices into the paper about our meetings. And he is going to be introducing our speaker for the day. So Brad, thanks for everything that you do, and thanks for introducing our speaker today.
One of the things about publicity, and I don't know whether any of you are so interested in this, but one of the ways we can get publicity and bring some people in here is get the word out about what this club does and these various speakers. What we don't do very well is a little note in the Mashpee Enterprise doesn't get the job done. You write something up, they shrink it to fit what's available space. They don't really tell the full story. You can say, I send this much words out, I've done the wordsmithing to get it down, but it doesn't work. But what we need is, and I don't know any of you gentlemen are Facebook kind of people, but I don't know if you go there ever online, but that's the kind of places we need to do it. We really should probably have our own website. I was on the Osterville Men's Club website the other day. They have Facebook presence like unbelievable. They have all kinds of stories on their website, but we need somebody who is either proficient in the creation of website and the maintenance of website, or at least somebody that will go out there, put it out on Facebook. But I don't know whether you guys care about Facebook, but that's other people might be. Maybe you're not, but we need to attract additional people, and Facebook and a website's the way in which you do it. So if anybody has an interest in that, talk to me. I'm not a Facebook person, but other people are, and so we need to attract other people, not us.
Great.
No,
Good. Thanks, Brad. So would you like to introduce our speaker?
Oh, it's time?
Yeah.
yes, it's time.
Okay, so our speaker today, last month, I asked a good friend of mine to come to this meeting. He walked away with an assignment. So Paul Colombo is here today to speak to us. Paul is an old friend of mine, and we've known each other for probably 15 years. The first time I met Paul, I was sitting at home doing nothing or whatever, and all of a sudden a rap came at my front door, and all of a sudden it was the Mashpee TV crew rapping at the door. They were looking for help to go out. They were involved in a shoot as another osprey nest was going to rise off of Monomoskoy Causeway, and they needed somebody tall to help do the last push. Okay. Paul just happened to be in that crew that particular day, and so we were standing there side by side trying to figure out how we're going to get this sucker up in the air. And if you know, the Friends of the Mashpee Wildlife Refuge is an absolutely wonderful organization, but when it comes to these kinds of things, chances are 75% of the people that are going to work on a raising of a osprey nest are women. And so, you know, all of a sudden it was like, we can't say no, we've got to go, we've got to do it. Well, we got it up, and that guy is still standing there, and they come back every year, so we got the job done. But as Paul and I then would walk the causeway, chit-chatting about things, I suddenly discovered that this guy knew what he was talking about. We'd point out something there, he'd tell me what it was that I'm looking at and commenting on. I suddenly realized we had to keep it. At that particular point in time, I was chairing the Conservation Commission in town, so therefore it made an awful lot of sense for me to draft him. And actually, when we drafted Paul to join the Conservation Commission as soon as he was able, a couple of years later, I guess it was, something like that. But the thing about Paul that makes it even better is that Paul is a twofer. When you get Paul, you get his wife. Okay? So this town benefited by that draft process that we went through many years ago, so that we not only now have him serving the town as the chairman of the Conservation Commission, we have his wife as a select person in the town as well. So they jointly are working the biggest problem that I think the town has faced and will continue to face. It's called the quality of our water in our ponds, our estuaries, our bays, and so forth and so on. He's deep into it, his wife is deep into it, anybody in the town is deep into what are we gonna do about our water condition. Paul will lead the discussion here and tell us what he is doing and what others are doing, so that we're gonna finally solve that problem. Paul, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Brad. Let me just grab this clicker. Oh. Well, that wasn't a good move, was it? There we go. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Nice to be here. Oh, that's right, the microphone. Can you hear me without the microphone, or do you want me to use it? I'm okay using it?
Might be better for the TV.
Yeah. The blue light is on?
Yeah.
Is this working?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to speak this morning about the Mashpee Conservation Commission. I am just one of 6 current members, so whatever I have to say is my own opinion. It's not an opinion collectively of the commission. We do meet twice a month as a regulatory board here in Mashpee, and we discuss and condition and come to agreements on things, and that's when you have the full agreement of the commission. Before I get started, let me tell you a little bit about my background. Oh, and I did it again. I'm sorry. Maybe I won't. Doesn't seem to want to work. Please stand by. Nothing's working. That's strange. I seem to have frozen my presentation out. Best laid plans of mice and men often go astray. Let me.
Want to get John in here?
No, it's on my own computer, so I'll need to reboot, I guess. Oh, there it is.
There we go.
There it is. It seems to be working now. In terms of my education, seems like a million years ago, actually back in the 1970s, I graduated from Worcester State, at the time college, now university, with a Bachelor of Science in Education, majoring in physical geography and environmental sciences. I then went on to Western Illinois University as a graduate assistant in Macomb, Illinois, and worked in the geology laboratories as a lab instructor. And rounded out and finished my formal education at Simmons College then in Boston, now a university, with a Master's of Education in Environmental Sciences and Instructional Technologies. In terms of what I've done with my entire life and then some, I did teach at the Clinton Public Schools in Clinton, Mass. For a period of about 28 years, environmental sciences and physical sciences. Kind of an interesting story, when I left my position, I was actually taking a job with the National Science Foundation to work on the World Wide Web. This was back in 1992. And some of you may know that the World Wide Web wasn't available to anyone until April of 1993. So you can imagine the conversation I had with the school committee and my superintendent when I asked them for a leave of absence to go work on something that nobody knew anything about. But they did approve it, and I did leave, and went to Simmons. We worked on 2 different grant initiatives. One was through Simmons College, the other one was through Wheelock. And it's probably the highlight of my life, to be out there developing infrastructure that wasn't ready yet for the public, and to be working with some of the best scientists across the entire country. I then went on to, at the same time, work on conservation commissions. I originally chaired the Conservation Commission in the town of Clinton for a period of close to 11 years, and we had all kinds of projects. Ironically, one of the biggest projects I worked on was the construction of their new wastewater treatment facility. So, full circle. Here I am now in Mashpee, and we're doing the same thing. I also worked in the city of Leominster for a period of about 4 years. with all kinds of issues. You probably saw Leominster in the news recently, getting washed away with some of those terrible, terrible rainstorms. And I sat here with my wife, who's from Leominster, and we just watched on the television all of these places that I know I had been because I worked on conditioning them, the streams and the rivers. And she grew up in Leominster, and she was just horrified to see all that happen. And now here I am in the town of Mashpee. I've been on the commission, as Brad said, for a period of, I think this is my 4th year. I came in with COVID. It was like in the middle of the dark days when nobody was meeting, everything was done virtually, and it took a while to kind of, no pun intended, but get my feet wet, get around the town, understand the areas, understand the laws, because they're different here in Mashpee than they would be in Leominster or in Clinton. With all of that in mind, I think what I'd like to do this morning is just, a lot of people look at wetlands and they say, so what? It's just, it's a swamp, fill it in, what good is it? Of what value is it? So I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour. I'm going to use a little bit of my cheat sheets here because dates and names sometimes can get a little sticky. I'm going to take you back to 1850. I wasn't around then, but the Swamplands Act of 1850 and 1860 authorized the filling in, wholesale filling in and draining of wetland areas across the entire country to bolster our agricultural processes. So the assault is on. Wetlands are really being challenged. Then along comes this report, which actually goes from the 1780s up to the 1980s, which documented every acre of wetlands environment that had been taken up and lost. Then this gentleman shows up. This is Alfred Nobel. You probably remember him from the Nobel Peace Prize. He was one of the inventors of smokeless gunpowder. And you might think, well, where's the connection here? Smokeless gunpowder. Let me go a little bit deeper. Then we have, and I've got to get this person's name because I forgot the first one, Christopher Spencer, who actually produced the first rapid-fire shotgun, 5-shell capability pumping. You probably know where I'm going now. And then we come to this gentleman, William W. Greener, who came up with the brilliant idea of actually choking the barrel of a shotgun so that the pellets would not spread out, but would be intensified, which gave hunters now the capability to make that full-fledged assault on waterfowl. But keeping in mind, the wetlands are decreasing, so you know what else is decreasing? The waterfowl. So it's kind of an interesting marriage, and that marriage really takes place right up until today. Sportsmen and the revenues that they pay in for their activities across the country is really the fuel for wetlands protection in the United States. The Lacey Act in the 1900s came in to not so much protect the wetlands, but to protect animals that were actually being wholesale taken and shipped overseas and used for decorative purposes. People wanted feathers and furs and you name it. People were taking animals for that purpose. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918, which really stepped in and made it completely unlawful for anyone to pursue, hunt, take, capture, or kill any migratory bird. Now it starts to get really interesting. Now we're up in the 1930 era, and if you recall from your history classes, the Dust Bowl days, the Dust Bowl was really the last assault on the wetlands. The land's drying up. The Dust Bowl really, whatever wetlands were left, was Mother Nature's assault on them. So the federal government actually stepped in 1934 and issued the Duck Stamp Act, which required anybody that was hunting waterfowl to purchase a duck stamp. Doesn't look very expensive there. It's only $1, but of course $1 in 1934, 35 was a lot of money. Here's today's duck stamp, $25, and that's valid to June 30th, 2024. And this program, this duck stamp program, throughout its history has raised over $1 billion for wetlands conservation and establishing wildlife refuges. Then of course you see this symbol everywhere, the United States Environmental Protection Agency that was established in 1970 by the Nixon administration. And then we come here in Massachusetts. This is our driving force. This is Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40. And this is the state's wetlands laws that everyone in this town has to follow. But in terms of that, we also had at the same time, that was, by the way, 1972, and 1972, the Clean Water Act started to come into focus. So now you're seeing some really stringent laws to protect wetlands. You may recognize this. These are the general bylaws for our town. This is 2023 cover. And here are the bylaws, the local bylaws that we as a Conservation Commission enforce. And many of them are very similar to the state. Some are actually more stringent than the state. Recall that you can have local bylaws that are much more powerful than state statute. So in many cases, our laws will supersede what the state is trying to enforce.
What are those duck stamps for?
You can't hunt without them. You buy a hunting license, but you also have to buy the stamp to go with it. So if you're going to hunt waterfowl, you need a stamp from the federal government, the Department of the Interior, because it's a migratory bird. It crosses all kinds of boundaries. You also need a duck stamp from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That, I believe, is, I can't be wrong, I think it's $5. It's probably gone up. And then here in Massachusetts, if you're going to hunt other forms of animals, you need a pheasant stamp, you need an archery
You
permit.
talk about a stamp, you were talking a little thing or?
It's a real stamp. It's a real stamp that actually would go onto your license. There's a bill before the legislature now to make it electronic. You know, I carry my license on my phone. Everything's electronic now. So it's basically, as you see it there, it's a stamp.
So if somebody wanted to make a donation towards improving wetlands, would that be a way to do it, to just get a duck stamp?
Yeah, there are tons of people that buy them, stamp collectors, kids, you name it. They don't hunt, but they know the money is going into the Department of the Interior for wetlands protection. Sure, yep. So as I mentioned earlier, these duck stamps raised a lot of money, and we here in Mashpee are a direct recipient of that money. You've seen this sign, I'm sure. If you drive down Red Brook Road, this is the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge. And that refuge is paid for by funds directly from the duck stamp program, those billions of dollars that have come in. The Friends of the Wildlife Refuge have a wonderful publication. I don't know if you've seen that. It's available online. It goes through the entire history of how the Mashpee Wildlife Refuge came into its being. And it's quite an interesting read. Let's look at the commission here, because I know Brad wanted me to make sure that I got across to you, who are these people and what do they do? So I want to talk a little bit about how a commission actually gets started. If you go back to 1957, Representative John Dolan filed the Conservation Commission Act. It was state legislation, and commissions were formed. And each and every local body made a decision of whether they wanted to have one or not. I don't know exactly, I didn't look this up to see when Mashpee voted to have a Conservation Commission, but every single one of the communities in Massachusetts now do have a Conservation Commission. This is the legislation. It's Chapter 40, Section 8C, which is a powerful document. You read that document and what kind of powers and duties a Conservation Commissioner has. It's kind of intimidating even for me. I don't know if we would, taking lands by eminent domain, and you get into a lot of, controversial issues, but that is the legislation that supports it. So here's our Conservation Commission. We have 7 full-time commissioners. Paul Colombo is the chair. I don't know really much about him. Alexandra Zolo is the vice chair. Alex came onto the commission a couple of years after I did. She is a wealth of information. She, at one time, managed all of the conservation lands for the town of Falmouth through their conservation department. And she is currently the director of, get this right, stewardship and community outreach for the 300 Committee Land Trust out of Falmouth. Steve Cook, I don't know if any of you know Steve. He is the principal and the owner of Katuitt Bay Design. Steve has been in the building and design business for years. He knows the regulations frontwards, backwards, sideways, especially for flood-prone areas. Erin Copeland is a relatively new member. She works for the Keller Williams Real Estate Group, and she's an up-and-coming, promising member, taking all kinds of courses to get certified. Marjorie Clabrood, and some of you might know Marjorie, she came to us about 2 years ago, former state representative, very concerned about the environment. And then Sandra Godfrey, she rounds us out. She's our newest member. Sandy, before she retired, was an administrative assistant for the admissions department, Harvard University. So paperwork doesn't daunt this young lady one bit. I'm always complaining about the paperwork. And then we have a vacancy, which right now is actually being filled. We're in the process of interviewing a couple of candidates, and hopefully that'll be filled soon.
What about Drew McManus?
I'm coming to him.
Oh, okay.
We also have associate members, only one right now, Chad Smith. Some of you may know Chad. He's the chair of the Sewer Commission. He actually stepped down from his full-time commission to take on chairing the Sewer Commission, but he stayed on as an associate. And then we have 3 vacancies. The difference between a full-time and an associate commissioner, full-time commissioners have the power of the vote. They see and do everything. An associate commissioner can attend any meeting, ask any questions, go on any site visit, all of the things that a full-time commissioner does except voting. Unless we don't have a quorum, an associate member steps in to make that quorum, that associate member votes. And that vote is good. Yes?
How does one become a member?
I'm going to go through that too, because you might want to jump on. Let me round out the rest of the department. This is our current conservation department. Drew McManus is our full-time conservation agent. Dan Kent, who came on board last year or so, he's the assistant conservation agent. And Stacy Ducharme is the administrative assistant for the department itself.
What does that mean, conservation agent?
Conservation agent, it's a full-time paid position. They go out and they meet with anybody who has any kind of intent to develop something that may come under the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. They look through the plans, they advise them as to what the commission may be concerned about or may be interested in looking at. They talks about the different regulations that the town of Mashpee has to make sure that either a private owner that's going to build something or a developer that's coming in or a contractor knows exactly what rules they have to abide by. It's a daunting job. Drew is also, he's a herring warden, so he's in charge of all the fish ladders and the migratory fish, and the tree warden as well, so he's got his work
So,
cut out.
I saw that Quashnet Golf Club cut trees down.
Yes, yeah,
So
that's...
that's where you guys get involved, or this
Yeah,
person gets
yeah,
involved?
Dan was out talking to the owners of that. In fact, that'll be discussed at our meeting this Thursday night. And I'm, because of open meeting law, I can't really discuss projects outside of, a meeting. Got to be very careful about, getting into that type of stuff. But let's just talk for a minute about meetings and hearings. We do meet at the town hall, typically twice a month, first Thursday, last Thursday of the month, depending on the calendar. Meetings can get to be, well, a lot of paperwork. It just keeps piling on. And to flesh it all out takes a long time. You don't just walk into a meeting. I'm working on Thursday night's meeting. I started working on Thursday night's meeting when last meeting closed. You have to get all this paperwork and look it over, go to the sites, talk to the people that own them, inspect, take a look at things. There's quite a bit there. And legal notices have to go into the paper. Forms have to be sent in to the state. Agendas have to be posted within the right time period for open meeting laws. And of course, there in the middle, you see that colored diagram. Engineering plans have to be looked at and read and understood. And it's a daunting task. Our meetings are also available on Zoom, so if you didn't want to come down to the town hall and attend a meeting, you could just log in and watch that meeting unfold. You can participate in the meeting at public comment, because Zoom is both not only audio, it's video, two-way. So we've been using that quite a bit. We rely very heavily on technology. Maybe that's one of the things that drew me into conservation work, is it's really technology driven. The town of Mashpee has a GIS computer technology program, and it sees everything. You know, you've seen Google Earth and Google Maps, and you can zoom right down, you can look right in somebody's backyard. Well, so can these GIS computer maps. The beauty of these is that they have layers, and I can take an area and I can zoom in on it, and I can throw in a floodplain layer. I can throw in a zone 2 layer, which is aquifer protection for our drinking water. I can throw in a layer for a buffer zone. I can throw in a layer for the velocity zone of storm. I can put all those layers in, and that's all fun to do when you're at home, but the beauty of all of this is you take it right in your pocket and you go right out onto the field. You know, I've got it on my phone, I've got it on my tablet. I can stand in a person's yard. I'm only going to be 30 feet off. GIS is good to 30 feet. And if I'm looking at that layer and I'm looking at where I'm standing, I have a really good idea as to whether this particular proposal is going to need our immediate attention.
Does GIS stand for something?
Yeah, it's a geo-imaging satellite. They're up about, it's kind of frightening, 25,000 miles, and they can come in and take a really good close. I had a grad course years and years and years ago, and there was a guy that is from NASA, and he says, well, our satellites that we don't let the people use, they're up at 25,000 too, and they can read the date on a dime. Yes, sir. And I just looked at this guy, and he had some moon rocks, and it was chained to his hand in a suitcase, and I thought, I don't want to know anything more.
Besides wetlands, do you have jurisdiction over every body of water in Mashpee, like all the lakes? And ponds?
Anything within, right now, because we voted a new buffer zone, anything within 150 feet of any kind of water, even a water that's not there. For example, a vernal pool that dries up. You know, it's only filled for a certain period of the year, and then it goes dry.
Somebody who wants to build a shed behind their house on John's Pond, they
Yep.
have to get permission?
It would depend on exactly where you are. Every lot is different. So typically you would go to the building department and you would request a building permit. If they look at that quickly and they see, oh, this might have something to do with conservation, they'll refer it over to us. Can things slip through the cracks? I guess occasionally, but it would be
But
pretty
you're saying
rare.
anything within 150 feet?
Anything within 150 feet is jurisdictional for wetlands protection. Yeah.
So how many people are, what percentage of people are knowledgeable, you think, of residents to know that they have to
Well,
get permission?
that's why I'm here today. You know, you're right. There's a dire need for outreach to the community, educational outreach. My background, technology outreach, my background, environmental science, my background. You know, I have a pretty good package for this. And yes, there are a lot of people that don't. In fact, the people on the
golf
issue,
course.
the golf course, we
Yeah.
didn't even know. So now they do. And we'll have to deal with that as we move along. And again, I don't want to get into specifics on that. Yes.
The 150 feet is brand new. I testified actually at a hearing up against real estate developers who did not want you to extend it to 150 feet.
Mhm.
It used to be 75 feet,
Right.
and so the 150 feet is
Well-
literally new this year.
Yes, it is literally new as of last May. It was 50, 100, and now it's gone to 75, 150.
Right.
Yeah, so the reason, the rationale for moving that buffer zone out, and we're one of the only communities that now have it, is because how bad our water is. We need to do something, and to wait for the sewer program to come up, and it's coming up, everybody's waiting for it, it's gonna happen. Well, there are things we can do in the meantime. We can extend the buffer, and I'm gonna show you some other things that people can do that are low cost. You know, every little bit will help as we go along. Brad wanted me, when he said, what are you gonna talk about? He says, they should really know about all the trails that we have here in Mashpee. Here's a trail map, close to where you are, Brad, up there at the Yehu Pond Conservation. These are all available either online or throughout, I'm trying to think where, Town Hall, I've seen them.
Library
The library has them. If you've never taken a walk down one of Mashpee's trails, you should grab one of these maps and go out and really take in what the conservation lands are all about, because it's phenomenal out there. It really is.
They was talking about extending it recently.
extending,
What?
The walkway, the path.
I haven't heard that, but,
yeah.
there's so many trails out there, you can walk
You
through.
went on a walking tour with Drew or something like that?
We go on tours all the time, site visits and walks throughout.
And you also, the Conservation Commission has people who take tours of various trails on Saturday mornings.
Yes, in fact, that's this slide right here.
Yeah.
We have a press release that we put out every month, and it lists their Saturday morning walks. They are very specific walks, that we have a tour guide that will go through that conservation area with anybody from the general public. The maps are there. In fact, this is for March 2nd, Santuit Pond Preserve Park. Cottonwood Trail Hike is on March 9th. Natural History of Mashpee River Woodlands is March 16th. So they're all listed out. And then in April there'll be a whole new list. So those tend to keep revolving all the time. And they typically are Saturday morning walks. And it's a great time for families and kids to get out there. And I forget the woman's name who does all of the work as far as explaining things. This now, I'm going to see if I can get this to work.
Today at Wacoit Bay Research Reserves, visitors...
Let me just back up for a second. You see this little QR code right here, down here in the corner? If you were out on this walk and you came across, there's placards out there in the woods, and you see that little QR code, all you do is punch your phone right at it, click it, and it brings up this video. And where you are is you're standing right at a pollinator garden. So this is Mary Kay Fox. She's big in the Mashpee, Friends of Mashpee group, and she's going to explain where you're standing, which is interesting.
And I'd like to talk to you about pollinators today. So come on with me and we'll go. Here at the Wacoit Bay Visitor Center, we have 3 distinct pollinator gardens that demonstrate what kinds of plants you can use, such as purple salvia, Joe Pye weed, and butterfly weed. You can also plant native bushes to attract these pollinators, such as the spice bush plant here. This is a host plant for the spice bush butterfly. These little guys fold the leaf over to hide during the day from predators and come out at night to eat the leaves. Here we are at another pollinator garden within the refuge, the Jehu Pond Conservation Area. This pollinator garden is one of 5 created in 2013 and has been maintained and improved over the years. These gardens supply nectar and pollen critical for those native pollinators such as bees, butterflies, birds, and beetles. And like the refuge, you can help pollinators as well by 3 simple steps. 1, plant milkweed. Without milkweed, monarchs cannot survive. 2, create your own garden. And thirdly, take the challenge. Join the Million Pollinator Garden Pledge and put your garden on the map too. So together, we can help pollinators thrive and survive in the refuge and in your backyard. So thanks for coming to the refuge. Hope you enjoyed your stay and have a wonderful day.
I actually saw a person once standing right at that pollinator garden with their phone when they were watching that video. And I thought, wow, what a neat thing to be able to have her explain exactly what's going on while you stand there. And that's some good news. This is some not so good news. As you all know, the water quality here in Mashpee is not good. I tell people that in my entire background, and I go back, as you saw, I go way back, I have never in my entire life seen water decline as quickly as I have here in Mashpee. I came in 2016. There was remnants of eelgrass left. The waters in Wacoit were crystal clear. You could take quahogs and you could actually see some of them right on the ground. A couple of years ago, I couldn't see my feet when I was standing in water that wasn't up to my knees. That's how quickly and how bad it went. And all of the eelgrass is gone. And now what we're really faced with is the cleanup. And that's what we're all involved in. And there's a lot of ways to clean up, even if it's just a pollinator garden or a rain garden. But we'll talk more about that. We had the unfortunate pleasure, I guess, of being Happy New Year with a New York Times article that came out
that was talking about the toxic stew on Cape Cod, human waste, and warming waters. This is a picture of Ashley Fisher, who's the director of our Division of Natural Resources, and a couple of the shellfish constables that are with her. She's in the Mashpee River and kind of moving around in some of the muck that's found in the bottom of it. Here's an algal bloom on the Mashpee River. This was last summer. I'd like to click the next button and get this to move. It's a drone footage, but all it really does is go up and down the river. But when you start to see a river that's closing in like that, you know you're in trouble, big trouble. And as bad as that looks there on the surface, this is what it looks like below the surface. I was with the Barnstable Clean Harbors group last summer. We were out at the intersection of the Santuit and Mashpee Rivers, where it comes right out into Pompanesett Bay. And we dropped the anchors, we were doing a lot of water analysis, taking some samples, doing some underwater video. We pulled up the anchor, and I thought I was just gonna throw up. The smell was, it was like a septic tank. And this is what Ashley Fisher has dubbed black mayonnaise. This is nothing but decaying algae that's on the base of the Mashpee River to the depth in some areas 6 to 8 feet. 6 to 8 feet. In some areas, the decaying algae is about ready to surface. And as Brian Howe said before he passed away at his last meeting with the Board of Selectmen, he said, some people that have a water view in the future may lose it. That's how bad the algae is getting. And that's why we are, as my wife would say, sewering with urgency. We're the clean water people. I stand down at that rotary all the time with signs, clean water, clean water. We have to address this issue. It won't go away on its own. You have to stop the nitrogen source, and we'll get into that a little bit. This is a different issue. Our freshwater ponds are also dealing with water quality issues. This is Mashpee Wakeby Pond. Looks beautiful. Looks beautiful, and it is. It's one of the largest freshwater ponds here on the Cape. This is what it looked like last June. June, not July, not August, June. Yeah, that's green. I sent these pictures to my cousin who lives up in Maine, the one with the dock, and he said, oh, I thought that was on somebody's lawn. I said, no, that's the water. That's the water. This is a cyanobacteria outbreak, and cyanobacteria is deadly. It can kill. It can kill pets. It can kill people. And when these outbreaks come, we post signs around the ponds. We hope people stay out of the water. They typically last for a couple of weeks, and then the algae dies off and the water clears up, and you're in pretty good shape. This is fresh water, so this isn't fueled by nitrogen. This is fueled by phosphorus. Phosphorus in human urine with septic tanks around the pond, and phosphorus primarily in the fertilizers that are running into the pond, stormwater runoff. And again, those are like the most shocking pictures I've ever seen. Sue Dangle actually took these photographs. She lives up near that area. She's the president, I guess, the director of the Mashpee Wakeby Pond Alliance group. And they put on this program every year called Splash. This was last year's program, and unfortunately last year, typically they'll have people swim the Mashpee Wakeby Pond. They'll start here at the beach, and they swim all the way over to Riders, which is, I couldn't do it, that's a long, long swim. Last year they couldn't swim because of the cyanobacteria, so everybody used the boats. The red and the yellow kayaks are mine and my wife's that we decorated up with the signs, and those are all the participants down there in the lower left-hand corner, and they sold shirts, they're raising money, trying to get public attention to the problems. And it's not just Mashpee Wakeby, Santuit, worse. Shumet, it's a PFAS situation over there, really bad, and even Johns Pond. I mean, they're all under assault from one type of contaminant or another.
What about adequate?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I gotta believe there are very few freshwater ponds left on all of Cape Cod that are healthy and clean. This is not just a Mashpee problem, although we probably are sitting on one of the worst situations because of our geophysical location. You know, we don't get a lot of flush from the ocean. We have a lot of rivers and wetlands and bays and estuaries, and they fill up. Yes.
I had some kidney issues, and I learned that dark soda pop contains a lot of phosphorus, and that's how it gets into the urine.
Yep.
Dark soda pop, any root beer, Coca-Cola, any of that is all bad for the kidneys, and it's bad for the phosphorus. Just a little factoid.
Yep, and urine, if you're not on a wastewater treatment system, a facility like we're building, if you're on a septic tank, which most people are in this community, that's all just going right on through. There's no separation. All that nitrogen in urine from nitrogen and phosphorus in your urine goes through the tank,
Leaches.
into the leach field, down into the groundwater, out into the basin. You know, so it's a serious situation. Here's our best step forward. You know, we are into the Mashpee Sewer Project now. This is the construction of the facility that was all approved and financed. And phase 1 collection was all approved and financed and is still being built, but just about finished. And right now, phase 2 of the collection system for this wastewater treatment facility has been designed, and I believe it's tomorrow night. It's going to be discussed with the Sewer Commission and the Select Board in terms of the costs and trying to form the article for the May town meeting. It'll be expensive, there's no question about it. None of this is cheap, none of it. But I don't see an alternative. And again, I'm not speaking for the Conservation Commission, I'm speaking for me. This has to be clean. We all have a responsibility for stewardship. What are we leaving to our children, our grandchildren, or somebody we don't even know that's going to live here in Mashpee in 50 years? You know, we're here only on a temporary basis. We all have a title to our property. So what? You don't own that property. It's part of the planet. And your charge is to take care of it.
Question?
Yes.
Does all of the toxic surface water, does that affect the aquifers?
If it gets in, if it absorbs into the ground, it's going to get into the aquifers. And most of the Cape is carver sand soils with percolation rates, water speed, less than 2 minutes an inch is what engineers will tell you. They don't say how much less. Some areas, it's a straight shot. If you go to the beach and you pour a bucket of water onto the beach, you see how fast it goes? Well, that's how fast stormwater goes down, and eventually it intersects the groundwater. That's how fast the contaminants from the septic system go down and get into the groundwater, and the groundwater just flows out to nearby streams, bays, estuaries, and that's why we are where we are. It's a serious situation. And Mashpee's unique. You know, we have 15,000 people, which ironically, I'm from Clinton. We had 15,000 people. We didn't have this problem. But in the summertime, we have 38,000. Our population skyrockets. And now a lot of these summer people, they don't leave in September. They're around. You know, if they're a professional couple, they stay here. They're working from home. So our population is ticking up. And there's a lot going on that you don't see, which is below the surface. This, I think, will come in, yeah. Let me see if I can. This is the Massachusetts Alternative Septic System Test Center. There's only 2 in the country. And this is at the Joint Base up in Sandwich. And it's a place where a lot of cutting-edge research is being done on septic systems. What can you do with that septic system if you're not going to be on a sewer? If the sewer is not going to reach your home? I mean, it's a fact. We're going to build a sewer project here. We're not going to sewer every house in this town. That's just economically impossible. But those areas that don't end up with wastewater collection from their bathrooms, they're going to have to do something with that septic tank. And this is what these people are doing now. So I'm going to just run this video. It's about 3 minutes, but it'll give you a really much better background than I could give you on what alternative septic systems are all about.
One of the most important factors in protecting and preserving clean water is properly treating our wastewater. The current Title V septic systems that are found throughout Massachusetts have limitations and do very little to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus. This shortcoming became quite evident in the early 1990s as damaging effects to marine resources, ponds, lakes, and rivers became more and more visible. These harmful effects can have substantial impacts to the coastal economy, property values, water recreation, and tourism if not addressed. In 1998, the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment, in conjunction with the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, through the Buzzards Bay Project, established the Massachusetts Alternative Septic System Test Center, known as MASTEC. Its purpose is to investigate and test new septic system technologies that reduce nitrogen and other wastewater contaminants. MASTEC is one of only 2 septic system test centers in the United States and is located at Joint Base Cape Cod in Sandwich. It is led by Director Brian Baumgirtel and George Hoyfelder, the former director and now an environmental project specialist at the test center.
Our MASTEC was actually developed in response to the need for removing nitrogen from the wastewater. So we looked at a bunch of technologies from all over the United States, and of course a lot of the information was developed outside of our area. There was a little skepticism whether our climate was the same as where that came from, so we developed MASTEC as a testing or proving ground for new technologies, and also for a place where somebody could do research and develop their own products relative to removal of different contaminants, focusing originally on nitrogen.
Obviously, when it comes to wastewater, most people think of big sewer pipe, but in a lot of places that's not really a feasible option. So alternative septic systems sort of fill a little niche where the sewer isn't an option, but you still need to be able to treat wastewater to a better standard than a standard type of a septic system. So that's why we do the research we do here to both ensure that the technologies that are out in the market are capable of doing what they say they can do, and also to provide a place where folks can come with their ideas and actually test them out. And see, what can be developed, where the next silver bullet in wastewater is going to come from.
Since the inception of MASTEC, scientists and environmental experts have regularly monitored and collected data. 3 to 4 years after different alternative systems were designed and installed, the cumulative data collected shows very effective and promising results. Results show that some of the alternative systems being tested are able to reduce nitrogen by up to 95%. Estimates on installation and operational costs also look promising when compared with traditional wastewater treatment. Alternative system designs with lower installation and operating costs could mean very good news for the future of wastewater treatment solutions on Cape Cod. For more information, visit masstc.org or becleanwater.org.
It's a nice couple of minute primer. MASTEC is open certain times for public tours. I know you guys were talking about tours. That might be a nice one to go on. The last time I was there, they actually had a couple of proprietary systems that, oh yeah, that's it, but we can't tell you what it is, and that the owners don't want their patent to get out. They're still developing, which makes sense. So there's a lot going on up there, and a lot of it is extremely promising. If you mentioned IA systems as little as 5, 8, 10 years ago, people would laugh. They're about 70% of the way there now, and we're conditioning IA systems every time the commission meets. If it's a project, an IA system's going in because the sewer's not ready, and our regulations that we've now changed only allow so many parts per million of nitrogen into a wetland area, and a Title V tank won't work. So you have to put the IA in. So we try to keep up with not only the best technologies, but the most affordable. They're all expensive. None of this is cheap. Yes?
So when somebody puts a septic system in, say, 20 years ago, do they have to get them updated by law every few years, or?
A typical septic system is a 30-year layout. After 30, it's pretty well gone. Some are, whether the element's better than others, but what you would have to do if you're within a wetlands area, or in the town of Mashpee, if you're within 1,000 feet of a wetlands area, that's a Board of Health regulation, you have to have an IA system. A lot of the tanks that are out there now can be retrofitted. It's not like you have to dig up your yard. There's a company called Sledgehammer. It's just a cylinder. You open up your tank like you would if it was going to be cleaned, put that cylinder down in there, and it's got all kinds of proprietary things that nobody will tell you what's in it, and they work. They reduce that level to get down to the acceptable levels of nitrogen and phosphorus, which is wonderful. You know, those are great systems for around the
So
pond.
you have to change it every so often?
That system has to be maintained every 6 months. So basically, instead of covering your tank over with grass,
Yeah.
you would put a cover so that, you know, they have green ones, and then you have access to that all the time. And again, I don't know the specifics, there's all different sizes, different size tanks, so.
What about the new thing called the electric toilet? I mean,
Oh, the incinerating toilets?
in Falmouth, I think?
Yes, in Falmouth, there's what's called the Green Center, the Alchemy Institute, that's right over by the Coonamessett Farms, and they're working on a urine diversion program. It actually didn't do very well last week in front of the Finance Committee in Falmouth, and the article has been put on hold. They were trying to do a test project with about 75 households. The urine diversion reminds me of where the IA systems were 5 years ago. People are still saying, I don't know, it's still got a ways to go. It's a good answer, let me tell you, it's a good answer. You can clean up your waters a lot cheaper with urine diversion than you would with a wastewater treatment plant. But it's the flow of things. We're just not there yet, and we can't wait. We have to get clean. And quite honestly, wastewater treatment, traditional wastewater treatment that I worked on back in the 1980s, that is the silver bullet. That's the best option.
And they say it's kind of expensive to install, and the parts are not made locally in the United States. They come from...
Right, a lot of it's coming out of Canada, Norway, Sweden, Finland. They're very big. Urine diversion is very big in Europe.
How
Very
does
big.
it work?
Basically, it's a 2-compartment toilet. You would sit on it, you wouldn't even know the difference. It's got 2 bowls. Both men and women, we're all built the same way. Urine goes this way and fecal matter goes that way. So you just divide the toilet. And the toilet flushes, but all that goes into your septic tank is the solids, the paper. The urine goes into a tank, which would be out in your yard, underground, and a truck would come and take that urine out, pump it out, then they would take it and process it, and then it becomes phosphorus fertilizer. You know, it's dirt cheap to process. It's like $1.03 a gallon to process it. It's very inexpensive. And the Mass Tech Center is working on that right now. Yes.
All the pumps they have around the area that are pumping try to clean the water in the area of Vaughan and Mashpee, is this all involved with this particular?
This is all part of the sewer projects. Yeah, what you're seeing on the streets, like over on 28, that's what's called the lift station.
My grandson is working on that program now.
Yeah.
Evidently, but he never did tell me all about it.
Yeah,
But
there's a
they're
lot
way
going
down,
on.
I guess it's hundreds of feet down pumping this huge amount of water, and they have a huge amount of filtering.
Oh, I think what you might be referring to is the PFAS remediation in groundwater. They're
Yeah.
pumping groundwater out,
Yeah.
cleaning it, putting it back in.
They're going, yeah,
Yeah,
through carbon.
it's a big monumental effort.
They've been doing that for 40 years.
Long time. And the plume is just still there.
I know he's studying all about this.
Yeah.
My grandson is.
Yes.
Can you give us a ballpark of what the expense is to put this tube into the system that's already there?
Yeah, I can. Again, every scenario is different. I've seen them range on the cheaper end around $6,000 just to retrofit it. And then I don't know what the maintenance cost would be. And then I've seen them go up as high as 10 to 11, 12,000. But to do a complete retrofit for a new IA system, and again, every site is different. If the old tank has to come out, you gotta deal with all that expense. Then the new tank's gotta go in, you gotta deal with all that expense, and you got all the landscaping expense, new leach field. You can spend, I mean, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. But again, every site's different, so no standard answers. So that being said, you know, sewering is extremely expensive. IAs are expensive. So what are the easy things? What are the no-cost, low-cost things? A couple weeks ago, Mashpee Enterprise. What can Mashpee do while it waits for the sewer? This is Brian Howe's colleague who is now doing, Ed Eichner, he's now doing all the water analysis for Mashpee. And he was presenting to the select board different alternatives, what people can be doing We heard Mary Kay Fox talk about pollinator gardens. There's a lot of things you can be doing. Pollinator and rain gardens. I don't have a rain garden, but they're pretty easy to construct. There it is. It's nothing more than a depression that's on your property, and your water goes into that depression. It doesn't just go out onto the street. It doesn't just run off into your neighbor's yard. It would go into this depression, and then you would plant that depression with all types of native plants that would uptake that stormwater runoff that, quite honestly, is filthy. You wouldn't drink it, and you certainly don't want to get it into your groundwater. But if you got it into a rain garden, before it would get into that groundwater, the plants would uptake it. And it's not big, but it's not small either. Every little piece is beneficial. Pollinator gardens, those can go anywhere. They don't have to be in a gully. They can be as big as the seat on that chair or the size of this room. You know, that's up to you. You can change anything in your own property into a pollinator garden with a little bit of, well, a little bit of reading and a little bit of thinking of what am I going to plant and what's it going to attract and how's it going to fit into my property. Michaela and I get into this big. We bought a property over on Meadowbrook Road, and we just looked at it and said, this has got to go. And we started, you know, bit by bit doing pollinator gardens. So a lot of what you see in these next shots, these are all pictures I've taken right out in my yard with my iPhone. I was talking to Al, right? Yes. I was talking to Al earlier. I told him I gave up my Canon 70D, all my high-end stuff, because iPhones now, those cameras are just phenomenal. These are all telephone shots. Yellow swallowtails, monarch butterflies. This is an interesting creature. This is called the, let me see if I can get this right. I always call it the, you know those big green worms with the horn on your tomato plants? Well, this is the moth that comes out of that worm. That worm will go into a chrysalis, and this is what comes out. Absolutely gorgeous. And I forget what it's called. It's a clear wing something moth. But you can see right through the wings. And that's on a butterfly bush. This is right in our backyard. When we bought our property, my sister-in-law said, well, do the owners have a horse? There was nothing there. It was just a big square rectangle with an old broken down fence. And we just went to business on it. We just started making one little pollinator garden here, one little pollinator garden there. And they all lead to, in the end, a tremendous uptake of nitrogen and phosphorus before it runs off down into Dutchman's Creek, which is below our property in the National Wildlife Refuge. This is it during the day, which is absolutely wonderful to watch. All the birds that come in, hummingbirds, you name it. They're just as nice at night. You know, you can turn on the lights, sit out there, have a small fire. The bats come out to eat all the insects. So you're constantly getting payback for that tiny little piece that you invested. And at the same time, I'm thinking, well, I'm doing my part because I can smell the water from my backyard. I can smell Hamlin Pond. I don't have to look up, oh, is it low tide? I can tell the minute I get home and open up the car door, oh, it's low tide. It's strong. These are just some other shots. Some pollinated gardens are ugly. The shot there on the right is along our driveway. It's nothing but milkweed. And when it's in bloom, it looks beautiful. Once it goes past bloom and the pods are out and those little white puppy things come, I got to cut them all down because my neighbors go crazy. I came home one day and it looked like, my neighbors said, it looked like it snowed. The leaves, the seeds are everywhere. But that's, the one on the left is walking right into our front door. I mean, coming home to that really makes a bad day turn really good. And you never know what you're going to see. When I was working with the National Science Foundation, I talked to a principal investigator out of Kansas State University, and he was inventing a methodology of putting tags on monarch butterflies and tracking them down to Mexico. And that's exactly what this is, and it was right in my front yard. So I shot the picture, I got on the website, I looked it up. There was a person here in Mashpee that actually tagged the butterfly. Actually today, that's old-fashioned. Today what they're doing, radioactive isotopes injected into the milkweed. Great idea, because the animals uptake it, and now you track them on radar screens. That's one of the things that was being kind of a thought thrown around when I was doing that kind of work. This is kind of a hodgepodge. Outside of pollinator gardens, we also have both low bush and high bush cranberry. And it's basically not for us, it's for the birds, the wildlife, the squirrels. Everybody tends to jump in and enjoy it. Here's another no cost, low cost. Get rid of your lawn. You know, I think when I was a kid, everybody was rushing up to southern New Hampshire. The big push was on to develop southern New Hampshire. And everybody moved in, and after a while they all said, hey, wait a minute, this looks just like what we left. They brought it all with them. And people were not satisfied any longer. The dairy farms just went flat on their faces. Tract housing went in. Nashua, Manchester, Keene, go along that area, southern New Hampshire. All the people from Massachusetts just brought it up with them. So why do people want to bring manicured lawns to an ocean environment? It doesn't match. So go with something that's natural. What we've done is every year I throw out tons and tons and tons of clover. If you want lines in your lawn, there they are. That's all clover though, and that's coming right out our front door. So that's an easy low-cost thing to do. Clover is nitrogen fixing, so any nitrogen that's in that soil from stormwater runoff, not going anywhere. Clover is going to suck it right up, and it doesn't need any fertilizer. It doesn't need any watering. It's a great alternative. And it doesn't really need a lot of mowing until you see all the little white heads that come up, because this is white Dutch clover. A lot of people are going to micro clover, no flower, you know, so you don't have to worry about it. Just plant it, and you're done. So that's kind of a nice thing, and it does away with this, you know, and this is really a problem. Most people are pretty conscientious about what they're doing, but no matter how conscientious you are, the rain is going to get on that, and if it's not totally into that soil, it's going to run off. It's going to get somewhere in your driveway, in a roadway, in a drain, in a creek, in a stream, in the bay. So whatever you can do to eliminate or reduce fertilizer, the better.
How have we restricted fertilizer legally?
We, right now, Mashpee has a bylaw, Chapter 107, and under Chapter 172, Regulation 31, we have a bylaw for restricting fertilizer usage. In other words, how much you can put on per square foot, how close can it be to wetlands, what time of year that can be done. To have the law is wonderful, but then you got to enforce it. And that becomes the tough part. Somebody's asking about Drew. You know, there's your agent. Go get him. See, if you can find those people putting that fertilizer on, it's a tough thing to enforce. The best way to enforce fertilizer reduction is to see what you just saw, is the outreach, it's the education. It's to tell people that there's alternatives, alternatives that are good for the environment, not harmful. And I think when people realize that they can do these little things that aren't going to cost them a lot of money, it's a no-brainer. They'll do them. So that's, you know, that's the idea with fertilizer. So again, there are two laws in Mashpee. 107, which is a town bylaw, and that restricts fertilizer usage. And under 172, Regulation 31, we have that as well.
Have they ever tried to restrict sales?
They have not, no.
Don't you think they should?
Some people have tried that. I believe it was tried up in Orleans. I believe it was done on Nantucket. I don't know about the vineyard. Everybody's got their thoughts on that. I see both sides of the argument.
Tax it to death.
Yeah.
Well, they like the pharmaceutical companies, you know, they're in it to make money.
Yeah. There's two sides to every coin, and again, I could tell you how I feel as a resident. I wouldn't want to take a position of the Mashpee Conservation Commission about fertilizers, other than what we have for a law that needs to be followed.
Talk about education, but one of the other education on fertilizers is that you got to get the guys who apply it, the landscapers that get somebody to do it.
Yep.
I had a patch that needed to be repaired, and I said, I want to go with the restrictions. And the guys kept coming back to me, and it got put off and put off and put off because they could not get the seed that was required by the bylaw.
Yeah.
Not available in any of the places they go to for
Supply
their product.
chain issues, yep.
Absolutely. So we compromised where they had some but not enough. It was frustrating to try to comply with the bylaw.
No matter how hard you plan, you can come up with the best program in the world, and then the glitches. Like when I started this computer, and it all just went off.
Well,
You know,
landscapers are not necessarily, with all due respect, you know, into the science of the whole thing. They know how to grow grass, but they're not probably into the details that we are in.
Right.
And so therefore, they don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
When I told them we gotta comply with the regulation, ta-da, they didn't know what you were talking about.
Right, yeah, there needs to be a lot of promotion
Yeah.
to be done. And the question becomes, well, who does that? You know, we have a very small conservation department, we have commissioners, we're all volunteer, I'm a volunteer, I got my hands full. I don't really have the time to go out and start teaching people what to do or how to do it. So the more people that get involved, somebody said, how do I join? Was it you? I think it was you. Come on board, we can use anybody we can get our hands on. There's always something for somebody to consider. A couple of other problems that I just want to touch on, I know we're going to run late here. Sea level rise and climate change, we hear about that all the time. We have a front row seat here, Mashpee, Massachusetts. And for years and years when I was teaching this, 30 years ago I was teaching climate change and the kids would say, are you making this up? I said, don't worry, I'll be long gone by the time that gets here. I'm still here, and it's here. And it's coming on like a monster. And we all see this every day. The other day, the Enterprise, the Falmouth Enterprise, Woods Hole scientists test out new water level sensors. They're putting sensors all around the shorelines. We're looking at sea level rise that is just, it's mind-boggling to see how quick this water is coming up. As quick as our water went bad, I'm now seeing water coming up, which brings up a lot of really serious questions. If sea level's coming up, what's going on with the groundwater, what's going on with our runoff? Town of Mashpee just finished its hazard mitigation plan that was updated November 2023. That's available online. You should check that out. It's like 300 and something pages. It looks at every conceivable scenario and how we would deal with it as a community. So it's not like we're not paying attention. Everybody's looking at something. There's even a chapter in here about earthquakes. Hopefully that won't happen, but it's in there.
Who wrote that?
That was done out of the planning department, Evan Lair, and there was a consultant involved, I forget exactly who, but it was done over a 5-year time period. The old plan needed to be done. Okay, let me just go quickly. This is what I mean about sea level rise. This is the roadway to South Cape Beach and Dead Neck Trail. And you can see the person walking on the yellow line because that's the shallowest part of the water. That was just a typical storm. 60-mile-an-hour winds, 2-foot tide level with a little bit of a surge. That's it. So don't tell me we don't have sea level rise here. There it is. And this is down in the parking lot on that same day. Watch it happen.
That was recently, right?
That was back in January. The beach is on the other side, right-hand side of that staircase. There is no beach. And those are the fire logs that support the artificial dune that holds up the parking lot. That's a serious issue. That soil issues that I really, you start fooling around with pH, you start having other issues. So it's one thing to lose a staircase and to lose temporarily the beach because they fill it back in with sand, but I wouldn't want to own that house up there in New Seabury that's sitting up there on top of that coastal bank. That's close. That's like 30 feet. Another 30 feet, that house is going to look like some of the ones we see on television.
Up by Crichton Way,
So-
I mean.
Yes.
Yes.
Crichton Way is the
Yep.
big place, yep.
So I look at the shoreline of Mashpee and I look at the water's coming up and I'm not at all on board with, we don't have a sea rise problem, a sea level rise problem. We certainly do. Climate change is another issue, Cape Cod Times, they're all over it, that's over a year old. The climate future is now. This is kind of a hodgepodge of Chatham. I won't go through all the slides, but it shows the whole barrier area changing over a 30-year period. Landforms don't change in 30 years. They may change in like 1,000 years or 10,000 years. 30? There's a lot going on there. This is going on at South Cape Beach. This is a combination of climate change and nutrient infestation. It's an explosion of seaweed and jellyfish. That was last July on South Cape Beach. You can see it just coming in. It's just an overgrowth of seaweed going on here. This is further down the coast near the Spit on Papaneset. Different type of seaweed, but nonetheless, feet deep.
The one will change color.
It's just a different species, so it, manifests itself a little bit differently. I'm not gonna go through this. This is a video I took offline. Pass over that for the sake of time. We have a lot of jellyfish in the water now, and you ever get stung by one, you'd know it. So the Pompanesett Watershed Stewardship Alliance is putting out these jellyfish sting kits, and they're taking donations, which would be a wonderful thing. Maybe somebody could kick in a few dollars. I think they run about $100 a kit. And my own thought is that every lifeguard should have one.
We put them all along Papaneset Beach.
They had them there last year, and they kept running out. There were so many. This is a tape that's online. I won't take the time to go into it, because it's about 11 minutes or so long, but a yellow tide on Cape Cod. Just put that in and watch that 11-minute clip, because it really does talk about all of the issues that we're up against here in Mashpee. I made it. I tried to. Thank you.
Historically, out at Coast Guard Beach, they have a film of the creation of the Cape that is all the background to what you just spoke about all the boulders, and it shows the development of the Cape, the de-development of the Cape. It's a fascinating film out at Coast Guard Beach. It's free.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, what a fantastic.
Paul, I'd just like to mention, you mentioned your meetings, the conservation meetings.
Yes.
That they are live on Channel 8.
Yes.
Most of the meetings, 90% of them.
Yep.
They get replayed, and you can see most of any of the committee meetings online at the town hall, the Mashpee Town website under the archives.
On the archives, you go right to, I constantly use that. I go back to see what some engineer had to say, because they're coming up on another hearing, and I just want to compare notes. Recently, our meetings have been just on Zoom, because the Finance Committee is using the Wacoya conference room, because they wanted that to be televised.
That's why I said most.
Most, yeah.
If you don't live in Mashpee, how can you get to it?
Go to the
Is it
town
online?
Mashpee website.
Yep.
Go to video archives.
Okay, great.
Give you the choice of committees, and then I think we're going back 10 years worth of films.
Okay, terrific, great. Boy, thank you so much, Paul, for that
thank you
wonderful
for having me.
presentation.
It's
We
nice
all
to be
learned so much.
One last question. A couple of years ago, it was Conservation Commission that was particularly litigious. There were various lawsuits being filed against Willow Bend and places like that. Is that still going on?
Yeah.
No, I went with lawsuits.
Not the Conservation Commission. Maybe something through the planning board, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I go back about 15 in conservation, and
Yeah.
I would say we had no legal.
I think there's a question about how many bedrooms you want.
There's a current proposal, in fact, when I talked about, the tons of paperwork, there's a current proposal before the commission by Willow Bend for, these are the plans. If I put these out, I have to put the leaves in the dining room tables, and there's a lot going on with bedroom counts and that kind of stuff. That's all planning board material. We have actually an outside consultant that's reviewing all of this. I mean, it's a big project. For volunteers to try to take that on, you're asking way too much. So we have, and Willow Bend pays, we don't pay, the town doesn't pay. We bring in a consultant, they pay for that person to review things, and then we look over all their recommendations.
Okay, great.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you. If
Appreciate
you have
it.
any more questions, you can talk to
Yeah, I'll
Paul
stick around a
after
little
the
bit,
meeting.
sure.
Do we have any more business?
Has everyone had a chance to look at the sign up for Wimpy's? Everyone seen the sheet? Okay.
Okay, great. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?